You're listening to the Art of Quantum Healing podcast with your host, Lisa Nadler. Each week we'll be welcoming divine souls who have overcome trauma, mental health addiction, and found next level abundance through mind, body, and soul connection. We will be going deep on one subject to teach and guide you. My mission is to help you high vibe, thrive with inner peace, passion, and purpose, all in the name of evolution. So welcome to another divine episode of the Art of Quantum Healing. And I have somebody who I'm very excited to interview today joining us, Candice Smiley. And Candice, I'm going to read you a little bit about her. We're going to go really deep on manifesting. Well, we think we're going to go deep on manifesting and money. But as you know, if you're my audience, we could go bloody anywhere. So I just want to read a little bit about Candice. And Candice is a self-proclaimed master manifestor and personal development junkie who loves to engage in interesting conversation with other influencers and entrepreneurs. Her favorite conversations are the ones that take courage to engage in. She spends her time, which I just freaking love, and anyone knows my new lifestyle, lives in a tiny home, 25 square foot, traveling with her daughter and now her son, 6 weeks old, speaking on her podcast and on stage and sharing candidly with other women on how to find love after betrayal, to trust themselves, to speak up for themselves and set powerful boundaries. And as we know, boundaries are very important right now in this current climate and environment. She has learned the power of saying no, listening to her own heart, and speaking openly about subtle abuse as it occurs in relationships. She's becoming a voice for listening to your own truth and speaking it powerfully. Ooh, welcome, Candice.
I hear my bio and I'm like, oh, there's a story
you do,
there.
You're like, this is just me. I don't like to put it. I don't like words. Like, it's really hard to define yourself in words because you're so much more than that little bio, yes. You know, and your journey to where you are now is just created this person that's sitting here now, and it's all just been such juiciness. So tell us about your story.
Oh my God. Well,
where do I start?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, how do I start at the beginning? And I think, I was really, really fortunate. I grew up with an amazing, I had an amazing childhood. I grew up on a farm, and so it was very free. I was home educated, and so relatively sheltered, which I think was great. I got to be a kid, and I think that was an incredible place for me to start life. And thank goodness, because once I hit 17, things started to get a little rocky. And I experienced a sexual assault from a boyfriend at 17. I was in that relationship for 2 years. And then I did not do the healing work. And so that led to other bad decisions, which sort of spiraled. And I think a lot of, women can relate to that. Whether it was, some self-harming practices that I certainly had in play, continuing to choose narcissistic partners, some very subtle, very wonderful people. But my toxic attracted their toxic. And so, I had a lot to learn, apparently. And then fast forward, of course, 20 years, and I've had a daughter. She's 6.5, going on 16. And I have a little, what did you call him? A little freshie? I love that. I have a spirit. A little new spirit. So he's 6 weeks old, and I love it. And, but whether it's, I've had a few businesses. I've been an entrepreneur. I don't make a very good employee, to be honest. One of my core values is freedom and self-expression, which doesn't really make you a good employee. And so, I've been an entrepreneur.
No filter.
Right. Oh yeah, not either. And I would call myself a catalyst. People are like, are you a coach? Like, what do you do? And I was like, no, I'm a catalyst. I'm willing to engage in conversations that take courage. Yeah. I like a seat at the table. I get a little bit excited when we get into topics. I'm like, ooh, we could ruffle some feathers here. Well, you know what? People are on autopilot. I know I was until I started to wake up. And now I'm just like, ooh, we're talking about that. That could be fun. Yeah. Whether we agree on same things, it doesn't really matter to me. But just I think about how far I've come in my own life, right? Beliefs I've held and let go of, that sort of thing. That I'm so glad that I had people who engaged in powerful conversations with me. And so that's really what I'm about. Connection, collaboration, communication, let's get real.
So has your throat chakra always been wide open, or is that something you had to learn?
No.
It's fucking wide open now.
Wow. No, not at all.
Yeah.
That was probably the number one I've been working on my whole life. And maybe longer, to be honest, as I rub my throat, right?
Yeah.
No, learning how to speak my truth and speak up for myself is still something that I am ongoing working on. I'm certainly much better at it. I'm certainly much better at it for other people. And sometimes it comes out as a lot of angry, because I haven't necessarily learned how to communicate in a way that feels powerful. But is also still, compassionate and feminine. I'm learning these things, and I don't mind telling the audience that, because for years I was a people pleaser. I was raised to be a very nice girl. However, I love words. And so if your listeners don't know, the etymology of the word nice is stupid. So once I discovered this,
that.
I know, I tell everybody, because when I heard, it was like this, what moment? Like, I don't want to be a nice girl. Nice women don't make history. Right?
It's that more of that programming stuff just to keep us dulled down. And I'm going to say it as women. We're talking to women. So as women, to keep us in that, be the wife, be the good girl, be the person. Your husband comes home, you do this, you do that, fit into that. It is stupidity when women are so powerful.
It's stupid. It's totally stupid. So I'm pretty passionate about sharing that. I think we create our world with our word. I have my own podcast, which is, the tagline is "Trust the Niggle, Tell the Truth," which is, if I look back at my life, every time I made a dumb decision, there was a gut sensation somewhere in my body that said, "That would be a good idea," and either I ignored it outright, right? Gave it the finger and said, "Too bad, I'm going to do it anyway." Or I didn't listen to it for whatever reason. And the healing has come as I've told myself the truth of that. Like, you knew that was dumb. Now what are you going to do about it? Or, that kind of thing, without necessarily being mean to me, right? I learned a lot. I'm so grateful for it. There's a lot of healing when you take radical acceptance, because unfortunately, the only one who was in common with any of those people who did me wrong, per se, was me. So clearly, if I had, boundaries, they're a thing. And I've learned you need to erect your boundaries before you need them, which means you've got to tell the truth to yourself about what your boundaries might be, not when you need them, because then you're basically, trying to put up the snow fence when there's already a snowdrift. Like, it's too late, sister. You need to put that thing up before the snow falls, so that the, it hits it and go, that was good. I'm glad there was a boundary there.
But victimhood is so much easier because you get to blame everybody else and you don't get to take ownership for your own shit. And a lot of times we don't know how to do that, because that's the environment that we've grown up with. We've watched our mum do it, watched our grandma do it, we've watched our father do it. And so, of course, it's just absolute learned behavior. And sometimes when something happens and it's you, or you create that circumstance in your life to show you what you need to heal and learn from, but you don't know it. And so you go and fucking rinse and repeat it and do it again later on in a slightly different sort of like scenario. So how do you break free of that? How do you know that this is actually your shit? Whatever's happening in your life is your stuff to deal with.
Well, I think if someone's listening, you just need to know that. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you follow any kind of personal development, guru, that's the reality. So, and that was hard for me, because of course, some of the things that happened to me, whether it was, being left with debt or being cheated on, or, sexual assault, my first response was, you think I called that in? Well, that's a slippery slope. We're not going to go there. But the reality is I ignored the niggle, right? I knew he was a bad guy. I didn't know why. At that point, I wasn't aware of things like gaslighting and manipulation and that kind of thing, because it hadn't entered my world in that significant way, based on the beautiful way I was able to grow up. So I got a very quick awakening to, not everybody is a kind person, period. And some people have some unhealed traumas that they will take out on you. So, but the reality is I knew and I wish that, at 17 or 24 or whatever it was when stuff happened, I had said to myself, this doesn't feel quite right. I don't actually have a reason for why I feel that way, but I feel that way. Because if I had done that, I probably would have had a conversation saying, this feels uncomfortable. Or, when he started to push buttons and push limits, I would have said, this is exactly what I didn't see coming. And then I wouldn't have beat myself up over it for not seeing it coming, because sometimes you just don't know, ladies. That's why it's called subtle abuse. It shows up so subtly that you don't realize it until you look back 4.5 years later and think, well, I know why I'm left with $350,000 worth of debt, because it started on this day, but it was so small, I let it slide.
And then it just, and that's exactly how it is. And when you start, and the biggest thing is that when I was going through my healing and trauma, and we're always still going through it, but when I was going through the deeper stuff, when I started realizing the subtle signals in my body, and I relinquished the mind and the mental aspect, and I really tuned in, you know without a shadow of doubt that something's not right. Especially for a female, because our soul and our higher self lives in our gut. It's our intuition. It's our, I call it the guidance. It's our navigated system. So if we're not listening to our navigator, if you should be going this way and you're not listening, then you're going to end up over here. And then you're always going to come back to here, but it's not necessarily going to be a fucking good place. It's going to be a messy, bumpy ride.
I want to call my book about my life detours, because I feel like that's what I kept doing. I would detour and then I'd come back and I'd be like, okay, now I'm on track. And truthfully, I sort of moved forward, but there was a lot of detours. So I could have gotten here a heck of a lot faster if I'd have just, paid attention.
So you ended up with $350K debt. Holy shit. Ouch.
I know. I was 26 too. So, I was at a point in my life where I should have been like really beginning to move forward to set myself up for my 30s. And instead I was left, and it was bad debt. It wasn't good debt. Like I didn't really have anything to show for it. It was a couple of cars and some credit cards. And long story short is I was in a relationship with somebody I should have been able to trust, and he wasn't paying the bills.
So 350K in Australia is $500,000. So let's let that just sink in. $500,000.
Yeah.
So how'd you get out of it?
One fucking day at a time. Slowly.
Yeah.
And first it was coming to the realization that it was bad. And, there was nobody really in my life at the time who I could talk to about it, because they were like, I don't even know how to help you. I come from a background where we had great credit. I had great credit before I got into this relationship with this human being. So I had they didn't have a point to guide me. And I sort of just determined to myself that if I rolled over and played dead, because everybody said, well, just claim bankruptcy and just start over. And I was like, I don't want to give up. Like, if I have to, sure. Yeah. But I feel like, there were many great people that I ended up meeting. And so that would certainly be something I tell somebody if they're in a spot. Once you decide you're going to go through it, right? If you're going through hell, go straight through it. You will meet people along the way who will help you out. And that was certainly the case for me. But a lot of it was just sort of an intention of, I'm here. I didn't mean to get here. I am still good with money, but I was with somebody who wasn't good with money, right? So I had to really reframe a lot of the things that I could have taken on as negative beliefs. And then I just made a decision, rather than work on the things I wasn't good at, that I would just focus on what I was good at. And so thankfully, I had a career, already had a business. And so I just worked harder at that. But I knew how to work hard, right? I came up with a great upbringing that said, you can be whatever you want to be. And I said, well, I want to be debt free. So that was what we did.
Yeah. And of course, it was part of your story, wasn't it? Because imagine how much you learned from now to then. And now you're a manifesting machine who can just.
I am. Well, and here's what I knew, right? Is that energy is neither created nor destroyed, right? So if at one point I was $350,000 in debt, the opposite of that is at one point I will have 350K like free and clear. And so I have been holding on to that for a very long time, that I'm like, this is temporary. Yep. And I just have to get through this and I will learn something. And I already knew, as my dad said, because he's full of these great things that he says. One of the things he told me was, well, Candice, you got a very good education. Education always costs money. In your case, it's a $350,000 bill. And I was like, okay, Dad, got it. So that is how I approached it, and would often tell people that. They're like, how'd you get yourself into that mess? And I'm like, I'm just learning a lot.
I just had a bigger lesson to learn than other people. So really your schooling for that, you took the debt out and then you went to school.
Pretty much.
Going to school. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Wow. And now you live in a tiny home where you could live basically wherever you want to. You shop in thrifty shops. And this is what fascinates me, because you're so like me, and you hit on it before with the freedom lifestyle, with just the freedom of having that you can do that or you can't do that. You can buy Gucci, or you can just go down and buy a $5 pair of shoes that are exactly the same as what the Gucci would be. So how did you get into this place of just having been able to, okay, because when you have money, a lot of people want to freaking spend it, right? They want to be like, they have these shiny things. They think that to look good, to feel good, to have all this stuff around them, it defines them as a human, right? Whatever externally they have. So how did you realize that it doesn't matter what you have externally, that what you have internally with this freedom and with this beautiful life that you choose, because you're a gypsy like me, is far better than having a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes or something parked outside in the driveway?
Well, it was a process, because first they were taking everything away from me. And like, if I think back to how I was now, I see myself as like this kid that was like, right, because I was losing everything, right? I lost the cars and I lost the, it was not a pretty process, right? It literally got taken from me. And then some of the stuff got taken from me and I still had debt. And I was like, this is dumb. I don't even have the asset and I still have to pay for the damn thing. So there was some like the ego had to die on some of that kind of stuff. So in the process, because there wasn't funds, I learned I had to go thrifting, which I hated at first. And, so some of it came along because I had to, which is, we know that's often how change happens. So there was a lot of resistance at first. Of course, over time, people would say things, and these people don't even know that they were like wayfinders for me. But like one woman said, I'm so proud of you. Like, I love that you have the thrifting lifestyle. Meanwhile, I'm thinking I'd rather shop at Gucci, right? Like, because you're like me, you're not in the fast fashion world. And I was like, fast fashion, what's this? And then I discovered about fast fashion. I was like, oh, there are women and children on the other side of the world who are making my clothes. Well, darn it. Now I'm going to be into thrifting. And so sometimes, like I say, you're right. I took out the debt first. Yes. And then I got educated, and I was like, yes, that's exactly why I thrift. Totally. Right. So there was sort of a realization that my higher self did have my best interests at heart, which is why I really have come to understand that life is rigged in my favor, even though like, it's like when you're like, no, then so, I think my higher self has had to have a lot of patience, because I didn't always get it the first time. So there's that. And then we move into
ego is one of the hardest to have happen. And with the death of the ego, as well as that massive thing, resistance. And it's just when you want something and you don't get it, and you get something that's of lesser value. And I actually tell this story, and it's about somebody who wanted a real flashy red car. And they opened up their door one day. They've been manifesting this red car, wanted this red car. And they opened up their door one day, and there was a red bicycle. And they're like, I didn't want a fucking red bicycle. I wanted a red car. And then the next day, and then a couple of different things happened. Then they got offered a lift to work. And then they got this little red car. And they're like, no, I want this. And what they weren't realizing is that the universe was giving them what they needed right now. So right now, they couldn't afford the petrol for that big flash thing. They couldn't afford the insurance. But what they were given now would get them to work. It would help them out where they are, and then eventually they would get that. But when you're sitting in that space of, no, I want that red car and on that stinking fucking bike, it's really hard to navigate through with the ego, because you want it, and what we want, we think we should have. And
I think I can remember when I was going through some of it, and it wasn't very much fun to be going through that process. Like I said, there were these people that spoke into my life, whether it was a YouTube video or somebody, and like nobody necessarily knew, because I wasn't talking about what was going on at that point, because I had so much shame and I didn't know how to talk about it. Because usually what people say is, how did you get into that mess? And for me, all I could hear was, the accusation, rather than how I've learned to hear it, which is people don't want to end up in that position. And so they're asking purely from like, how do I avoid that situation? Not how did you get yourself in there? Which is two very, right? Yes. So I've learned now, and now I think it's relatively amusing. And I like to laugh at myself, and I'm like, oh wait, like let me tell you a story. Okay. So I got a gooder. And you can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. So these people, they just sort of came in. So I adopted that lifestyle. I don't remember when I was introduced to the tiny house movement, but I know that it was somebody who literally reached out and said, I think this would be up your alley, perhaps because they knew I was a thrifter and I was, living a smaller life. I was living in a, smaller space, which I actually really enjoyed. My life was much simpler once everything was taken away.
Isn't it? And the clutter that we have, I always say that what is around you is whether things are cluttered, whether you've got, is how your mindset is. And when and my husband said to me this morning, he said, I feel freedom. For the first time in my life, I feel freedom, complete freedom.
And I had to really reframe the losing of the credit and stuff was really bad.
Yeah.
But I had to reframe that because, I kind of got out of the matrix. Does that make sense? So again, I learned, and then I was like, oh, well, now I'm free because, people would say, well, I got to pay this bill and I got to pay that bill. And I'm like, all I have is my cell phone bill. So I didn't have credit. I also didn't have any debt anymore.
Yeah.
Right. That I was like, wait a minute. So again, my higher self had it.
Yeah.
Yes. So once I stopped because everything got taken away, I realized that zero is not a bad thing. Yes. It was like reset. And I was like, higher self, you were so brilliant. What am I supposed to do with my clear slate? And so when people say, well, it sucks you don't have credit, you can't buy an airplane ticket. I'm like, dude, no big deal, because I still had a job. I still worked. I didn't claim bankruptcy. So it wasn't on my record for forever. There was lots of good things that happened that I was able to do. I asked a lot of questions because I sort of refused to give up. So that refusal to give up meant I fought really hard. And so I found things that most people would have just, I just did this. And I was like, well, I didn't. I asked lots more questions and I discovered I can do this and I could do this with this and I could do that with that. And I got really creative. Again, with the thrifting, I learned I could do this. I learned I could do business and trade. I learned there was so much learning that, and then, this zero. Mm-hmm. And the effect that we give a zero, we look at at our bank account and we see zero and we feel bad about it. But if we look on the credit card statement when it says zero, we're happy about it. I'm like, so it's really just a number. Yeah. And we assign something to it.
Yep. And money, when you said, you could have 35, so you could make 35, it's just getting into that different energy, into that different frequency. It's just a shift. If you make $5, you can make $5 million.
Yes, I can.
Same fucking energy. Exactly.
It's the same energy. And people would say, well, exactly. They're like, I can't afford that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if you only have $5, you have $500,000. It doesn't really matter because you will still say that about something. And so my whole perspective around money and energy just went it was not pretty. I don't recommend this for anybody. I'm sure my soul had it planned when I agreed to that, but wow, the human part of me did not love that part of my life. Okay. However, I learned so much stuff. And then, I discovered I love thrifting. I love consignment. I love reusing. I love that energy. And I think it's through that I met the tiny house movement. Of course, I got addicted to being online. And for me, the biggest thing about the tiny house movement is the smaller I shrunk my life, because then once everything got taken away, I started giving away more because I had less anxiety. I had less bills. I got rid of things I had a pair of jeans in my closet and they were expensive pair of jeans. And at this particular point in my life, $200 on a pair of jeans was I will never get back there. Right? Okay. They were good. They were beautiful.
They were so good. Religion France the other day.
They were beautiful. And they I killed in these jeans. Okay.
Your ass look good.
Oh, I did. Damn. But you know what? Every time I put those jeans on, I thought about that person. And it brought up this
energy, right?
Right? This energy. And I was like, I cannot keep bringing this energy forward. And so, I'd heard about clearing out your closet. And of course, I had a good friend who was doing this and she kind of tipped me off that she was like, those jeans you love, they need to go. So to be honest, I let go of those jeans and then the rest of the closet just followed. So that by the time and it wasn't until I got into a marriage at this point, I left that marriage. Anyway, long story short, by the time I got through sort of this whole process, my whole life fit into a tiny little car.
That's what we've just done. We just put everything in the car. That's fucking it. And we didn't even upgrade the car. We looked at 152 grand cars and we're like, no, Neil's my husband's had this Prada for 12 years.
I know.
Fucking brilliant. It keeps going. It does. It's everything we need.
Yeah. So I had this little getaway car.
Love it.
It's brilliant. Oh, I loved her. She was amazing. She was perfect. We shrunk my life down. That's how we left my marriage. That was sort of the final straw. I had sold everything. I even gave away things from like my collections because I was like, look, everything I'm not going to take needs to fit into one hope chest, and that's it. And like I knew people I gave them to, and they were like, "You're giving me this?" And I'm like, "Listen, it's done with me. I feel like it should be with you." They were touched by it. I gave away clothes, I gave away bags, and I had friends that were like, "Listen, I'm coming over to shop in your closet." And I was like, I'll tell you what I need to keep and the rest you have. And I had so little anxiety. Then we did what you guys are doing. We did house sitting. I went all up and down the coast in Canada. I went all up and down the coast in the US. Had a wonderful time with my daughter.
Yep.
I had one bill, my phone bill. Gas was cheap in this little thing, and she would just go and go and go and go and go and go and go. And my thought was, if she leaves me on the side of the road, I'll just leave her there and I'll buy a flight home. Right? Like, that's it. And it was like this reset again. And I was like, wow, I keep on having these detours, these resets where I come right to another point, another level. There's new devils at every level for sure. But this coming to this. And then I was like, well, now that I have a zero, I can reset. Now that I'm in this new place, I can reset. Now that I'm here, I can reset. And so it's been a reinvention the entire way through to last year, 2020. I left a relationship that was a beautiful relationship. And I was so glad to see that I had come to a point where I was now attracting amazing people, but it just wasn't the total right fit. So no more of the bad ones. Yay me. You need those Karens in your life. You're like, okay, we're good. I am moving forward.
I've learned that lesson. Great.
Yeah. And I said to the universe, because I've been a manifesting guru, I'd manifest free gas. I'd manifest like you name it. And the brakes went out in one particular spot. And we got this beautiful, like just miracles beyond miracles, right? Just call it in.
Yep.
So it's like 3 days after I break up with this person, I've moved out of this cute little house that I know I manifested for him and I to move into with our kids. And it was awesome. And I was like, this or better, universe, like this or better. Cause I really liked that house. So I was pissed about the relationship. I was pissed about the house. And he wasn't moving out because he's like, no, I really like this house. And he says, you can manifest another one. But he's like, I'm not good at manifesting.
I'm not like you.
Right? So I said to the universe, I said, you know what? It's time for my tiny house. And it was actually him. He's like, you should go manifest your tiny house. And I was like, I'm going to manifest my tiny house. So I did. And I was just, in grief enough. So just mad enough at the universe that things had fallen apart again in my life that I did the facetious thing. And I said, here's the deal. I want a tiny house. I only want to spend $20,000. I need to be available immediately. And, this is what I want it to look like on the inside. So I went
doing a shopping order, isn't it? It's like going on the Google and going, okay, can I have
I did. Yep. And then I went online to the local place where you can buy like things like houses and cars. And wouldn't you know it?
There it was.
There it was. I'm not even kidding. And I was like, that's my house. That's my house. And what really confirmed it for me is I went upstairs to my dad, who, if I make decisions on, spirit totally, which most people go, I don't know if that was smart. My dad is like the opposite. He's the thinker. We make no decisions quickly. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He's good. He's good for me.
The wisdom.
I went upstairs. I said, Dad, I found my house. And he's like, yeah. I show it to him. He's like, let's go buy the house. And I was like, okay, universe.
What about it? Nope.
Yeah. And it was absolutely perfect. It had never been lived in. This little house was clearly for me. And it had been around like some family of 7 had won it in one of those like 50-50 raffles. And of course they couldn't have it. So they sold it to this gal who bought it for her and her fiance, and that fell apart. It had basically been sitting on her dad's property. So it had brand new appliances, like still the stickers on it, had never been lived in. I walked in and I was like, it's my fucking house.
Wow.
So we bought it.
And there it is. See?
There it is.
And so when you're doing that sort of manifestation, because a lot of people spend the time and they write it down and they script it and they talk about it and they visualize it and all that sort of thing. Why do you think that you can manifest like that? I mean, why can you manifest like that when other people sometimes take so long to bring something in their life or they still haven't even got it? What do you think how do you think you've got to in the space right now that you can do this? Because I guarantee, like you're like me, 10 to 15 years ago, there's no fucking way that would have happened, because it would have been all this sort of like computer messages in between. So what is the difference between now where you are that you can manifest like that, and with the beautiful journey and the lessons that you've learned, you've gone through, to where you were?
Well, I think back to when I first started manifesting, right? And I would have the, the key cards with like the big diamond ring on it and all this other stuff, right? I wasn't actually attached to any of that shit. Like energetically or emotionally, I wanted it, but my ego wanted it. Not this is for my best, my higher self. This is where I will serve humanity best, which plays into it, right? So I was coming out of that relationship realizing I had gone through a pattern, and I was seeking the tiny house because I was like, well, that will be convenient. But to be honest, if I had gone on there and found a beautiful mobile home that wasn't necessarily a tiny home, but the energy was there, that would have felt like a manifestation too, right? It just happened to be that at that particular time, in that particular moment, that was how beautiful the universe showed up for me, right?
Yep.
So that's important, I think, for people to know. They also need to know that I had been thinking about this tiny house idea for like 5 years. So I had been forming the idea quietly in my mind and in my heart without talking about it to anybody, except beyond the, I'd really love to someday live in a tiny house. Wouldn't it be really cool to eventually live in a tiny house? Isn't this tiny house really cool? So I had been aligning myself to that. My whole life had shrunk to the space where, because you don't attract what you want, FYI, you attract who you are. Period.
Boom.
So when I went online and said, there's my tiny house, I wasn't necessarily surprised because I had aligned myself where everybody was like, well, how are you going to fit in a tiny house? And I'm like, well, actually, everything fits in a small car. So yeah, it fits. There's still drawers in the tiny house. And I've moved my now partner and the brand new baby we've got into there. And there's still space. People are like, how are you doing with 4? And I'm like, listen, we buy houses these days, and then we buy furniture to fill it. WTF. We buy houses that we can't afford on someone else's credit so that we're in debt to the bank and the bank owns it. And then we work and we're not even at the house where we're happy with the people that we love. And we buy furniture we can't afford to fill it. And I'm like, no, I bought a tiny house, which I customized to what I needed. So like there's a floating shelf, and people can see this on my YouTube, like a floating shelf where I used up the space. And there's space over here. And so it's not, we didn't buy the house and then fit ourselves into it. I bought a house that I fit to me, which is different. And then we have this little life so I can live anywhere, any way that I want to. So people say, well, you downsized. And I'm like, no, I upsized. I upsized my life by shrinking my living space.
All my needs are being met. So there's two things we touched on. There's two things. There was the one, and this is what I say, is that when a lot of the time, because people just read regurgitated bullshit online with, oh, this is how you manifest because someone's learned it and done a 2-day program and then they just fucking put it on. This is how you manifest.
And then they think they know what they're talking about. Yes.
Exactly. Is that you cannot, what I call it is you cannot make the universe your bitch. And that's what a lot of people try to do.
No, she will bite back.
She will fucking, and then she will not give you what you want because there's that energy that we're talking about. So when you said that, you did it, you said it in what you said before, is that you did it for your needs, for their needs, and for everybody else's needs, because it's you, me, us. It's not just what I want, because we're all, there's this big fucking vortex of everybody wanting the same thing, and we can't always have what we want. And that's like the red bike and the red car thing. You've got exactly what, and you've been talking about for so long. The other thing you heard on, which I love, we haven't spoken about, is that people think, and this is the whole bullshit of the matrix, right? People think that they need a huge house. They need the shiny. They need the latest and greatest and best things. They need to look a certain way. They need to act a certain way. They need to have, and what happens is that they get so far in that matrix that they think the next shiny thing is going to make them happy. If they manifest the next thing, if they have this much money, it's going to be better. But they're always wanting more, and they're actually in lack of. They're always sitting in a life of fucking lack of. Mm-hmm. Whereas what you did is you created, like I have done as well, this massive sense of inner freedom. Things are just coming to us like crazy now because we've created. And I was always scared to get out of the matrix, to get out of that. Well, I've got a house, we're secure, we're safe, you're not secure, you're not safe, you're not any of that. So getting out of the matrix is huge. It's huge because we're just programmed to be. Oh, it's so much fun.
And that's the thing. Like people now, they're like, you're so relaxed and you're so happy and you don't look like you're 37. And I'm like, I know. Let me tell you, still don't have this. Like, are you kidding me? No.
If you want it,
Sure.
Mm.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
It's a want.
Yeah.
It's a want and a need, but it's not a I have to have it because
It's I will use it if I need to, right? I will now use that as a tool, which those that run the matrix don't really want you to know, but that's the reality. And so I had to lose it all in order to gain it all. And I think that that's what's really fun is
that's the hashtag.
You can manifest. And to be honest, if I can't manifest something now, if I've been thinking about something and it's not coming through, I no longer, do the mind thing. I get real quiet and I sit there and I'm going, okay, so this or better. So what am I missing here? Right? Because there usually is a better and I have missed it. Yep. Right. Or I'm so focused on my thing that I just need to let go. Case in point, I was trying to get pregnant because I was like thinking about the timelines. I was in scarcity. I don't have it. I want it. And, tick, 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 tick goes the clock. And then I just went, you know what, universe, it's not, then I'm, I should be good at this. I manifest my first kid. We pulled the goalie and there she was. Right. So I was like, what? I've lost the magic. Seriously. Right. Anyway, the month we got pregnant with this one, he and I were like fighting. We were working through some stuff. We were in it. We were in it in a powerful way, right? Like we were running into my subconscious beliefs. We were running into his beliefs. We were like, we're doing this. We're growing. We grew together, which wasn't pretty every moment. And then found out on Valentine's Day, because I woke up and I was like, I'm totally fucking pregnant. Like, and I can't figure out what day it happened because I was like, and people need to know that about manifesting. You don't get to control it, number one. And the universe loves to play this kind of game. Yeah. So she'll go ahead and try to figure it out. And I was like, that doesn't even make any sense, universe. And she's like, stop questioning me, just enjoy it. And I'm like, okay.
And that's what people do. They try to, that's why I was talking about making her your bitch. They tried it. You've just got to surrender to it. You've just got to, and with your tiny house, you asked for it, you asked for it, you asked for it, you asked for it. And then when the time was perfect, yeah, because I believe that we have already, like there is so many timelines that are running beside us, and timelines have what we want, and depending on the energy and frequency that we live on is what timeline we're on, and it's also the timeline that's for our greatest good. So whether you're wanting something right now, you're going to get it eventually, but right now it might not be the perfect time. So let it go. Where people get heartened and they give up, they're like, oh, this is fucking working.
And that just heartbreaks for me. It is, right? And you gotta get unattached to how it shows up. So that tiny house could have continued to be a dream, and I would have still, like I said, seen a small home that I could have afforded that would have and it would have had an energy to it. Like it would have been open, it would have been beautiful. Like all of these things would have been there, and I would have seen that as an answer to that manifestation. Because I had aligned to it, but I was looking for this tiny house because I was ready for a place that I could heal in. I was ready for a place for my daughter and I to be in. I was now okay waiting for the next relationship. I wasn't looking for it. So I was okay to be like, I could make some roots knowing that the right man will be brought to me at the right time, regardless of if I'm living in a tiny house in the middle of nowhere off grid or I'm in the city, right? Like, so there was a lot of things that people need to know that I was surrendered. I was broken. I was open. I was in grief. I was facetious to the universe, but I was also very honest with the universe. This is what I need right now. Give it to me if you can. And if not, this or better, right? Like that sort of a, don't believe you can do it, but I know she can, right? And then she shocked me with this perfection, which is also what I needed to get me through the next 14 weeks of healing. And I knew I wanted to create the podcast. I was already starting to do some writing on my first book. So this tiny house still, even though I'm only in it part-time now with the new baby, and we also live in, city, but again, I live wherever I want to live that week. It's like week per week, day by day. Yep. But I go there and it's like peace. It's like a recalibration, which I know helps me be my very best for the rest of the world. So yes, it was my dream, but it was also part of the bigger dream. And people need to know that when you're manifesting.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you just hit on that people need to know is that we don't always manifest when we're in this beautiful high, this is other regurgitated bullshit. The high vibration makes you always in the, live in that beautiful space of being happy, but no, sometimes you've actually got to be in your healing journey to be open to actually receive what you want. Because if you're not in that space, then how can you see the contrast between what you want and what you need to heal? Because otherwise you're always sitting in this journey of, everything's great, everything's wonderful, because things can't go to shit. Because if they go to shit, then I'm going to get out of this manifestation mode. No, you need to follow the path. You need to allow that gut to take you where you need to go to heal. Healing is key, because when you heal and you create the space, guess what? Same as the tiny house, same as when you put that stuff in the car, more can fucking come in.
More can come in.
Space of, and but your story of, it's interesting because your story of, I think is, everything is just such perfection. Like your story of how a human, we're in this human body, we're a spirit, we don't know how to fucking navigate it. This is just, what the hell? All these emotions, all these different things that are happening. And then, and then we go through a healing journey, and then we open up the space. It's the same as when you packed up your house. It's exactly the same. You gave away all the things that held the bad energy. That's your healing. That's your healing. And then you got this beautiful, lovely, juicy, minimalistic life, and you create the space to call more in. It's exactly the fucking same. You or your materialistic stuff. It doesn't matter. It's just,
right?
What the shit.
And I wish more people would get it, because like the way it feels is amazing. Like the feeling of relief is amazing. And I tell people that all the time, because as you start to do this journey, it's not sunshine, lollipops, and roses. Somebody says, no, sunshine, puppy farts, and something else. I thought, puppy farts, that's hilarious. No puppy farts for sure.
Puppy farts.
Yeah, so good. Anyway, but I said for me, it feels like relief. It's just a little lift on the inside. And I think for some people, if they're learning how to do it, it's a lift. It's tiny. If you're not paying attention, you will miss it. But when you feel it, follow it. Yeah. And just look for that next feeling and the next feeling and the next feeling. Because, and I'm sure you follow some of the same people, so the language will be the same. But for so many people, when they're manifesting, they're putting their boat in the river and they're trying to paddle upstream. Manifestation is easy, people. It's easy because you get in the flow, which means you need to put your boat in high enough that you just follow the river down. You don't start at the ocean, which is where all the abundance is. You have to start at the top, which is often a tiny little trickle that comes from people don't get it. It starts small and it becomes the ocean. And so I think of that all the time, that when I'm in resistance and it doesn't feel like it's coming, I got to stop. And it's just, even in that stopping, I usually know, oh, that's the way, right? Oh, I missed it. Oh, maybe not right now. This or better, right down to the clients I pick, right? Because I'll say, okay, universe, I could use some more cash flow. And then within days, people will reach out and go, hey, we should work together. Yeah. And I had one. And I got an email confirming a meeting. And my first thought was, ugh. And I went, oh, whoops.
Oh, God.
That's in resistance.
Out of alignment.
Right? That's the niggle. And I went, okay. So I just reached out and said, hey, it's not a good time for me. Can we reschedule this into the new year to see if it'll shift and change, right? Do we just need to grow? Does there need to be something that needs to be happening? And it's then, interestingly, I feel the flow again. It's just, and I wish more people would get that it is constant calibrations. It is not sunshine, lollipops, and puppy farts. It is really much like minute by minute, hour by hour, paying attention. And right, that's it.
You've got to trust.
Oh yeah.
The hardest thing for someone to do is to surrender, because people need something to hold on to. So if they're not seeing anything, if it's not coming into their current reality, or things aren't showing up how they think they should be, because we have that perception of how things should go, then, and that's that they get out of the alignment with it, and they would have taken that client, and then they would have had perhaps them not being able to pay the bill, or just struggle, or just not the right aligned person for you now.
It's this or better, right? So sometimes the universe, she's cheeky like that, right? You make an intention. No, she is. She's totally cheeky.
She's got a hell of a sense of humor.
She does. So you just got to know that. And I have a girlfriend who literally just wrote down her goals. She says, I'm going to do this, and I've never been able to accomplish it. And I said, well, write that stuff down. And then remember that she's going to test you. So be ready to flip her the bird and give her a wink. Okay. Because she will. And she's like, oh, yeah. And I said, make sure there's a wink in there because she's only doing it to test you because she loves you. And she will bring you what you want, that or better. But 9 times out of 10, when the manifestations begin to show up, most people feel like they're too big, too fast, and too much. And so you've just got to kind of lean into it and smile a little bit because it's coming to you now because you're ready. And if it hasn't yet, keep on doing the work to attract it, right? So if you want to attract a loving relationship, then be a loving relationship. If you want to attract more money, then bring more value. Like it's got to be
reciprocal.
It's got to be, right? Like, I want to make more money. Great. Go and listen to a TED Talk. Why? Because that'll raise your value. Like, you got to do something to bring something else to the universe, or leave it with the universe and then leave it. Like, leave it. And she'll take care of it. But people don't leave it. They keep picking it back up. They plant the seed and then they dig it up. Is it growing yet? I'm like, well, it would have been, but
or they don't see the nudges that are coming for the I call it the breadcrumbs. They're not seeing the breadcrumbs that they need to pick up and just eat the little steps to get to the bigger picture because they're not ready for the bigger picture. I know I was. Yeah. God, if my husband had come into my life when I was, because I went 3 years. I said, I'm going to go 3 years by myself. I am not going to, because I was like bad boy. I love the bad boy.
Yeah.
Drugs, alcohol. Like I attracted. I was a victim struggle one-on-one fucking bitch, I'll tell you. And I lived in that environment. That's where I wellowed, and it was comfortable. I knew it. It was fun. And then
we're used to that. That makes sense.
It does make sense. Well, that's how I'm always treated. That's my worthiness. Yeah. And it was like 3 years. And if I had met him any time to when I did, it just wouldn't have worked. If he'd come in, it would have. And he's my absolute soulmate. So I know that he came just 2 months shy of 3 years, but we actually talked on a dating website, Plenty of Fish. I know, right? For 2-3 months, but I just wasn't ready. And nor was he. And we met at the perfect time. And he was the only person I saw after that 3 years. Yep. And I wrote down exactly what I wanted, and he was it. I missed out.
And that's what was funny to me. I promised myself after this relationship, and I did my healing, I was like, I'm going to be celibate for a year. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to focus on my daughter. I'm going to build my tiny house. I'm going to get my business on thing. I had plans. And that's the other thing that the universe really likes. Make some plans and then watch what she does. Because then I was gently nudged, right? That my feminine balance coach was like, well, you should get out. If you're not going to, date or whatever, be serious, at least go make some friends. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I found myself texting this guy that I'd met a few years before. I was like, why am I texting? I remember literally thinking, why am I texting this guy? Like, this was not in the plan. I'm breaking my own rules. So I put the phone down and I just assumed, right, that it was just old patterns coming up, right? And he responded. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to see you. And I was like, shit, right? Like, now what am I going to do? So I showed up. Showed up and I said, here's the deal. I'm out of a relationship. I'm going to be celibate for a year. I'm going to do my own thing. And he was like, okay, cool. Let's hang out. And I was like, really? You're like cool with my boundaries? And he was like, yeah, sure. Let's just be friends. I was like, cool. And then, bastard, he played this beautiful podcast about relationships. Oh, yeah, because I'm still telling the universe, here's my plan. Here's my plan for my life. And she's like, no, it's not. Hang on. Got work for you. Anyway, he plays this podcast. It's all about relationships and healing from your traumas. And, it was perfect for what I needed to hear. And I was sitting there and I'm going, I'm not going to make it a year. And I knew it. And his comment was, well, Candice, either I'm just a repeat of your patterns and you're going to learn something, or I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. And I was like, are you sure you're the best thing that ever happened to me? And, fast forward and 4 months later, we were pregnant and we just welcomed our
first. And you've done a shitload of healing in between it.
Oh my God. I said that to him today. I was like, I'm doing a lot of healing in this relationship. Oh my God.
But isn't it amazing that when you've got a man that knows that holds the space you to be able to heal, it makes a huge difference. Such a huge difference. Huge. It was funny because I remember there's a story I tell people of when I first walked into my now hubby's, which I was never getting married. Like, I'm 49 and I got married. Oh God.
Oh God, she says.
He's really good with dates. I'm shit. 3 years ago, and we've known each other for 7 years. And I remember the first time I walked into a house and I was like, what is that smell? And he's like, it's incense. And I'm like, oh God, it smells fucking terrible. And then we packed up. He was quite spiritual, and I was not. I was just, that was not around my plate, and didn't like cats, didn't like birds, like none of it, any of, I'd like cats, but like, ugh, they're annoying. And then I remember us packing our stuff up and going over and living in Bali for 4 years. Simplicity again. Took our 2 bags and off we went. We were going traveling to Bali. Came home, unpacked our container. And I'm pulling out these statues and all these amazing stuff, because of course I started going down my spiritual journey. And I'm like, yes, where did you have this? He's like, Lisa, that was all around our house. I never fucking saw it. I was like, okay, well, yeah, no, you're right for me.
Yeah, it'll work.
Okay. So it's amazing. And that's another thing, is that sometimes we don't see what we need to see because it's not the right time for us to see it.
Yes, 100%, right? Whether it's reading the book, I have a couple of books I read every single year, because of course within, that 12 months I end up shifting and changing, and I have a new word and I'll be listening to it. I'm like, I know I've listened to this book 4 times and that's the first time I've heard that sentence. How is that possible? Like, what?
Why is that? Just triggered me. It's like my friend's got a couple of books and she just goes, okay, what do I need to know right now? And she's got a money book and she'll just open it up. I think it's Think and Grow Rich. And she'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I need. Just total intuitive, total gut feeling. What book, what do I need to know? Which is how we should live our life, right? It's being completely intuitively and completely soul-led, completely listening to our higher self, getting the nudges from the universe, and still possibly doing something wrong because we needed to do that, but then coming back and resetting
it wrong, because like you said, it's out of the contrast that we know. And that's still something I'm learning to be okay with, because a lot of people, of course, around me are, they'll wait until they're sure it's the right decision. And I typically move much sooner and then go, oh, hang on, I gotta change my mind. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But, my dad would say, God can't steer a non-moving car. And I'm like, that's true. Sometimes you got to get the ball rolling. And then you're like, oh, that way. I need to go this way.
He's got cool sayings.
I know. My dad's brilliant. He really is. He's got these brilliant sayings that I didn't appreciate when I was a kid. And now I'm like,
you're sounding condescending when you're a kid. It's like, oh, whatever, you know it all.
Right? Yeah. Well, he gave me how to win friends and influence people when I was 14. I didn't really until I was 24. I remember reading it at 24 and thinking, maybe my dad's not quite as dumb as I thought he was. Like,
victim.
This is really
you chose him.
Legit. I know. I think about that all the time. And to be honest, for as much as we don't always see eye to eye, he also respects me, right? And so when I'll be coming to him with a decision, especially now, he'll say, well, Candice, you are highly creative, right? And he's still sort of in that the Christian matrix, which I respect. That was the way he was coming up. But so we use different language, but he'll say, well, you always have the gift of discernment, right? Or you were you've been given the gift of creativity, so of course you're going to have moods, and of course you're going to make decisions based on how it feels for you. And so it's nice to be seen, even if not always understood, right?
But he understands you in his own way.
Yes.
From his own perception. Which is, and to be respected is huge, especially from a parent.
Yes.
Something you got to earn.
Yes.
Grandbabies
help. Grandbabies help.
Yes. Little weapons of manipulation.
Yes. Yes, I did.
It's amazing how great go when there's friggin' babies, I tell you. So if you could leave one thing with the audience that you would really like them to know, what would you like to leave them with?
What I feel like I need to say is you really can be or have whatever you want, especially if that is in the best interest of the people around you, if it has a bigger impact on the world. And a lot of greats have said that, right? You can have anything you want if you help enough other people get what you want. But I think for me, it's even more than that. It's like, don't ask what the world, needs. Ask yourself what's your magic? Like, what lights you up? And I know they'll say, follow your bliss. For me, it's like, I got to follow the feeling of relief, right? I got to go to the place where I have less anxiety. Like for me, it's a lot less pretty. Really, I'm just looking for peace at the end of the day. And I find that the more I show up from that place of like, this is me, this is real, this is raw, this is what I was thinking, that seems to be the magic that is needed. I spent years trying to figure out what I would speak about. And then after I did my healing in 2020 and I just started talking about my story, all of a sudden everybody wanted to hear me. I'm like, so you mean to tell me that I literally am enough? Like, I didn't have to make up a story. I don't need a signature talk. I don't have to do a niche product or anything. I'm it. That's it. And so I'm on a bit of a mission now for women to say, like, whether your magic is to gather women in circle, whether your magic is raising children, whether your magic is running a business, it doesn't matter, but just do your magic.
Yes.
And then as you chase that feeling, what lights you up, even if it's contrary to what everybody else is saying, that's when the manifestation and the miracles are going to show.
Yeah.
Period.
I love that. I absolutely love that, Candice. And it's interesting because I'm listening to, I've just started, well, I'm reading it and I'm listening to it because I'm the person that has to read, write down and listen. I'm all of it. The War of Art.
Oh, I have not heard that one.
Oh, it's by Stephen.
I'm
and it's all about.
I get goosebumps, so I need to go and get this.
There you go. I knew I needed to mention it. There you go. And it's all about the resistance, the ego. Goosebumps. And he says exactly what you just said, that that you were just speaking about. He actually says, I was listening to it this morning, and he said around the same thing in the book, and I'm like, oh, that's powerful, really freaking powerful. So yay, I'm excited.
Yay.
So now you have to go and read that book. Goosebumps.
I'm going to. Well, Christmas is coming, and it's like the little bit of time I'm going to have off. And, it's beautiful because I'm, currently breastfeeding, and I get these like 20-minute intervals where either I can sit and do manifestation, or I can sit and practice Ho'oponopono, or, I listen to audiobooks.
I know.
It's been great.
We didn't even talk about that. My goodness. Okay, we can have a second one.
We should hang out again.
We need to hang out.
Yeah,
but we didn't even get into that. We're really into the juicy money talks either.
No, we didn't.
Oh, we've got so much more to talk about. Good. Excellent. Tick.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your beautiful wisdom, telling people your story, and just there was so many, like, I always go boom when I hear something I love, and if you I was going boom, 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 boom. So yes. I know that I got a lot out of that, and I'm sure that audience has just they probably have to listen to this a couple of times to be writing down all the juicy tips, and and I encourage them to listen to it, because it's like the books, you listen again, yes. You're like, oh, I got that, but because what you hear now is what you need in this moment. Next week, after you've done the growth, or next month, next year, there'll be another part that you'll go, oh, wow, okay, cool, I need to learn that now. So you're always given what you need. Just always remember that with manifesting. It's just, I love it. It's exciting. Oh, thank you so much for coming on, Candice. And
thank you.
What's the name of your podcast that people can listen to your?
Yeah, it's just Create the Ripple Podcast, and you can find it anywhere. And the website's CandiceSmiley.com. I'm sure you'll have all the links for everybody to check out, and just come find me, follow me. I pretty much show up like this all the time. So
still in raw, no more bullshit, no
more bullshit. Well, now that I figured out that I can talk, I'm like, I got stuff to say, right? And it's not always popular, but I don't really care anymore. At this point, I'm like, listen, I kept silent for so long.
If you don't like my shit, go and listen to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going.
Keep along. Oh, good.
A fully activated and cleared throat chakra looks like.
Very much.
There she is.
Very much. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we're definitely going to have a take two. Abso-freaking-lutely. I look forward to it. Everybody, so much love. Mwah.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel and help us grow the community by sharing it with your friends. I am your host, Lisa Nadler, and this is The Art of Quantum Healing.